Welcome, survivors, seekers, and thrivers. I'm your host, Shari Lee Roberts, psychic medium, energy healer, and living proof that you can transform your pain into power. Each episode, we dive into trauma healing, developing your intuitive gifts, and reclaiming your life. Get ready for real stories, deep wisdom, and a little laughter along the way.
Welcome back. Today, I am not going to do a full intro to my guest, Morgan Scafe, because her story is so chilling. Laying at a ball, unfortunately, and it will have every hair on your body standing up. But at the end of that, you will be well equipped in identifying, grooming, and I don't mean that in a personal hair, nails way. I am talking about sexual grooming by people closest to her. And both of us are both from the state of Michigan, have both endured abuse, neglect, and trauma. Morgan's story shows how easily someone, a child, compromised, is groomed and taken wayward into a dark, horrible world. Morgan, it is an honor to meet you and to have you here. Thank you for your courage and fortitude to come on in the hopes of preventing others from this life experience. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sherry, and thank you. And I do have voice trauma from my abuse, and you'll probably recognize it throughout the podcast. I take a lot of sips of water, and sometimes my voice will cut out, and so I apologize. But I really am honored to meet you, and I really thank you so much for having me on. I mean, what this is going to be a great podcast, and my story is horrifying, but I'm here, I'm alive, which is in itself a huge accomplishment. And my absolute most, my message to survivors is please speak up. Please use your voice. Please tell somebody. And my grooming process was violent, which is a little bit different than what you typically see in a lot of these big cases or stories of abuse where coaches or doctors have groomed individuals over a period of time, and that is most common. My story is a little bit uncommon in the fact that I experienced violence right from the beginning, which was to instill fear, absolute horrific fear, into me to keep me quiet and silenced. And so, that does happen quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I do love that we will touch on grooming.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing up your vocal challenges. But the good thing is, compared to mine, you're good. No one will be notice. Okay, let's start early on in your childhood because that is what leads us to susceptibility.
Yes, well, my story starts with my parents, whom my mom has passed, but I loved her dearly, and I love my father immensely. However, my mom was sexually abused as a child, but totally ignored it and did not seek treatment for it. And how she dealt with it was through drinking. And so by the time I came along, she was drinking excessively outside of the home at bars, clubs, bowling alleys, and that allowed her to be absent from the home almost like as if she had two full-time jobs.
Wow.
And then my father was the breadwinner, trying to keep everything afloat, keep everybody, going, and he worked an immense amount of hours. And so I basically was born and thrown to the wolves because I wasn't parented. I wasn't, anything. I just existed in our house solely by myself. And my sister had to take care of us quite a bit, and that wasn't fair to her. And then my middle sister was unsupervised as much as I was, and so we were just kind of left to our own devices. And I mean, just really quick, one funny thing is when I had to get to a baseball practice, my sister and her date were going to prom, and they were leaving all dressed up in a really nice car, and I begged them to take me and drop me off at practice. So I was basically self-sufficient and independent as early as 5 years old.
Wow.
And I just started running my own life because no one else was. And so that kind of gives you a understanding of how all of this abuse went unnoticed.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't unnoticed by my parents. It was unnoticed by teachers, principals, the school, the church, friends of the family, relatives. It was all just, just not noticed or ignored.
Yeah.
And so that is how I was what I refer to as a perfect storm,
Yeah.
because my abuse did not take place at home. It took place at my best friend's house, and it was her father. And so I think he knew of my home life and that it was, pretty well neglected, and that my mother was drinking. Um, she did that in public so often in such a small town that everyone kind of knew about it. And back in the 70s, 80s, when she drove home at 3 in the morning and passed by the police officers, they knew she was at the bar for 12 hours. But, it was just as long as she was staying in the lines, they would
Yeah.
let it go, which was unfortunate. But
Now, how old were you when you connected with this
mhm,
girlfriend?
mhm. I was 8 years old. I was starting the third grade at a new school in our town. It was St. Robert School. It was a private Catholic school, which is part of the problem. And I was just starting third grade at 8 years old. And I began a new school. I did not want to go to the school. We were forced by my mom because of a whole bunch of reasons. And I I was not receptive to it. I did not like it. And the minute I walked through the doors, I absolutely had, I don't know if it was a ominous feel,
Yeah.
but
No.
I did not accept it. And yeah, and I knew, and I did not accept being at this school. And so it was really challenging. But then meeting this friend on the bus uh, was great, because I had been several days without trying to figure out how to get home from school. I didn't know what bus to
Oh,
get on. I was
oh,
walking in the heat. It was, and
oh,
so by the time I figured out what bus I needed and got on, my friend said, "Hey, Morgan, come sit with me." And so I did, and we struck up a conversation, and soon we're striking up a relationship and a friendship, and we're playing at her house, and it was always her house, and I didn't notice that. She wasn't really allowed to come to my house, and so I was always going over there. And about a month into the friendship, we were playing inside, and she left to go find some more Barbie clothes that we were playing with, and she went into her room and she just didn't come back. And so I went looking for her. And when I went into her bedroom, her father's in there kneeling in front of her bed. And I didn't realize she was on her bed, but that's what was happening. And I didn't understand what he was doing. I had no frame of reference of that he would be lusting her. But when I heard her crying, I said, "Cheryl, what's wrong?" And he spun around. I kind of surprised him, and he spun around and grabbed me by the arm and threw me up against the wall and just started threatening me, yelling at me. I started crying. I had no clue what was going on. I had no understanding of his
yeah,
anger.
yeah,
And so then he said, "If you tell anybody, I'm going to effing kill you." And I'm like, "Tell him what?" And then he proceeded to put his hands down my pants,
oh,
and it
no.
hurt so badly I screamed. And then he just completely grabbed my arm and clamped down and started threatening me and threatening me. And then he got up and left the room. And I was just standing there with this stupid Barbie doll in my hand going, "What was that?" And
Yeah,
then my friend got up, ran out back out to the other room, and I got out there and I tried to ask her what happened, what did I do? What did I do to make
yeah,
him so mad? Why was he mad at us? What's going on? And she said, "It's getting late. I think you should go." And I agreed and left, and then tried to talk to her at school about it, and
yeah.
it was like she had no clue what I was talking about. And it was just kind of crazy making right from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And I refused to go back over there for a period of time. And then she kept begging me, and we'll play outside. And so eventually I agreed, and I did go back, and it was fine. Nothing really happened. And this went on for maybe a couple weeks. And and then she talked me into spending the night.
Oh, oh no.
Yeah, yes. And so I spent the night
Uh,
and woke up with him standing over me. And then they say the rest is history, but Lord, the rest is insane. But that that's where it
okay.
started.
Now, where was her mother?
Well, always right there at home. She wasn't allowed to leave the house except for to get to the school, to go grocery shopping. After that, she was hardly able to leave the house independently of him. So she was always home, and she, as you will hear my story, she was fully aware of what was happening. And she was so violently abused by him
Yeah.
that she was compliant in the whole mess and just ignored it.
Okay. Take us in there. Take us into the horror. I mean, him standing above you. I assume naked.
No,
Um,
he had his underwear on, but other than that, which was really shocking to me because my father, never ever was. Um, he didn't even walk around without a shirt on. He always was fully clothed unless we were in the pool, and so that to me was shocking to see him like that.
yeah,
But he, oh, go ahead.
no, please go on.
He
Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Well, he was standing over me. He knelt down and pulled the covers down and started, putting his hands under my pajamas and touching me. And it was very painful. And so I was crying and started to scream. And he put his hand over my mouth and said, "Shut the F up." He said, "I will snap your neck right here if you do not shut your mouth." And but it was hard because everything he was doing was very painful. And
Yeah.
so I did my best to to be quiet and to not scream. But if I did, he would physically hurt me in other ways, like grab my arm, grab my hair, and he proceeded to touch me. And after it was done, he left, and I cried myself to the point I just soaked the pillow with my tears. And
Was your friend in the room listening to all of that?
yes, ma'am, we had separate twin beds, but they faced each other. So
Yeah.
her head was over here, my head was over here, and she was against the wall. I was closer to the door. And yes, she was in bed with her baby sister, and I'm assuming was awake, but she
Yeah.
was turned to the wall. She didn't acknowledge anything.
Mm.
She didn't. But as you learn my story, basically, with her, um, she was not molested if I was. And then eventually, it leads up to more than that. But it was like a break for her
Yeah.
from what I've now learned and understood and put
Yeah.
together. And so
Oh,
she didn't say a thing, didn't turn over, didn't try to help. No one in the house tried to help. It was every man for himself.
yeah.
And so I'm I know she was aware of it, and whether she was pretending to not know what I was talking about when I would question her later, or whether she was dissociative and was not aware of it, I don't know. But enough happened over the years that everyone in the house was being abused in some way and was being complicit, silent, and keeping their head down. And unfortunately, there were times where we all thanked God it wasn't me. Like if one of the brothers was being abused or beaten and screaming, it's like you almost were glad it wasn't you, which is so sad. And I feel terrible about that now. But there was
No, it's
many kids in the house.
yeah, it's normal to feel that way. I mean, you feel terrible, but damn, your psyche needs a break.
Yes.
Did your family, anyone in your family notice anything different in you?
Well, my sisters and I were all 3.5 years apart. So my oldest sister and I were 7 years apart, and then my middle sister and I are 3.5 years apart. And we were all living in a very dysfunctional home. People would call it abusive, but
Yeah.
I don't, because compared to what was happening to me at the other house, it was not a big deal. But there were times when my sister asked me about a black eye, and I would say things like, "Oh, we were playing kickball," and she'd say, "It's you're not playing kickball outside. It's too cold." And I said, "Oh, we were playing in the basement." Or there were times where I had a bruise on me, on my face or wherever, and I would say, "Oh, I was roughhousing with the dog." I would make up lies and excuses, because as this progressed, it was not only critical that I didn't talk about what was happening, it was critical that others didn't find out.
Yeah.
And so if people did question or look into it, I would give them reasons and excuses that seemed plausible as to why I had a certain injury.
Yeah.
And after a while, people stopped asking about it.
Okay. People listening are going to wonder why you kept going back.
Yes, yes. In fact, that is why I wrote my second memoir, was because I had that question constantly, even from therapists. Like, why would you go back over there? And so I wrote a second memoir to explain that and other questions. But he threatened me so badly from the very beginning about returning. And he would say, if Cheryl asks you to come back here, you better get your ass over here, or I'm going to A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And his A, B, and C were often contradictories to each other that I didn't put together. I'm 8 years old.
Yeah.
And he would say, if you don't come back, I'm going to tell your mother that she has a whore for a daughter. And then good luck, because no one sets out to raise a whore. And you're not going to be able to live at home anymore. I mean, his threats were psychological and physical, and had my head spinning constantly.
Yeah.
And so he threatened me things like, do not tell, do not let anyone find out, and get your ass back here. And those were all physical and mental threats that were quite extreme. And then if you didn't comply in some way, what you experienced was horrific. And he kept his word. If he said that I needed to be back over there and I went too long, I was beaten terribly as a punishment for disobeying him and coming back to the house in a timely fashion.
Okay. So, how long did this go on before you told or someone put two and two together?
Well, it went on for 8 years,
Oh
and
my God.
it continued to escalate every 6 months, every year. It changed or escalated as he got more and more comfortable realizing that I was compliant in every way. It escalated. So it escalated into some pretty brutal situations that I completely poured into my second memoir because to
Good.
answer that question, you know, what were you thinking? And it wasn't thinking, it was survival. And
Yep.
so I just kept going back, and it lasted 8 years. And during those 8 years, you know, there were people that would ask about certain things. People were picking up on stuff. People were noticing things, but no one was doing anything about it. No one was calling CPS. No one was questioning my parents. No one was questioning me. And it was just, I can't even explain it. I would like to ask every adult that came in contact with me, what in the hell were you thinking? And
Yeah.
I, yeah.
I too write in my memoir about neighbors hearing my father abusing us. One even coming in the night my dad was beating up my 12-year-old sister, literally using her as a punching bag. The moment he told the female neighbor him got arrested again, she goes, oh, turned around and walked out. It was horrible. I could not even wrap my 6-year-old mind or even now. Okay,
Yeah.
so what finally stopped the abuse?
Well, after 8 years and some really, really, really horrific things occurring, including a death of one of his children,
Oh my
I
God.
had been told for 8 years that I would die and be killed if I didn't return, if people found out, or if I told. And by the end of the 8 years, I was already drinking and smoking marijuana to just drown out
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
that I was so depressed and so lost and so broken that I said, screw this. I would rather be dead
Yep.
than endure one more minute of this bullshit.
Yeah.
And so I woke up one morning after him raping me, and it took everything I had to stand up, get myself dressed. I walked out the door and basically just said, F it. I choose death. I choose death. And I'm not going back, but I know that he's going to come and kill me. He had to because I knew way too much
Yeah.
information on him, and I was a threat to him. So I believed he was going to kill me if I didn't return. So I chose death and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. Just lay me down in
Yeah.
the cold, dark ground and put me
Yeah.
under.
Yeah.
And that's what I chose. And so I walked out and didn't return.
Okay. So, how long did it go where you like stopped looking over your shoulder, or did you report him or tell someone?
It was, by the time the 8 years was through, I was in high school and I was in a
Yeah.
totally different environment. The school was, and that was the other reason I had to walk out, was because I knew we were going to get caught because they were noticing the bruising, my walking funny, my depression, my drinking. They were picking up and noticing everything and were coming at me constantly. We're calling CPS. You know, we know you're drinking. Your depression has reached a point to the point we're scared you're going to take your own life. So they were
Yeah.
calling my mom. I mean, it was like a war zone to me because my grade school at St. Robert, they were ignoring it. And
Yeah.
that's part of the story, why they
Yeah.
were doing that and why they were hiding it. There is a reason for that. And so I was
Um,
like panicked all the time in school that I was gonna get caught. And so I walked out, but just because I left the environment, my depression, my drinking was totally out of control. And they forced my mom to put me in outside counseling. But that very first session was, if you tell me that you've been abused, if you're being abused, all that blah, 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 I have to
yeah.
report it, which is good. But I sat there in therapy at 16 for a year and a half until I'm 18,
Mm.
silent about it. But I would give her little clues, and I mean, just watching my demeanor. I mean,
Yeah.
I wore like huge clothes and kept myself covered. I kept my head down. I kept my eyes down. I never made eye contact with people because he trained me not to.
Yeah.
And so it was so clear. But until I say something, there's not a lot anyone can do. And so I sat on that couch for just a little over a year and a half until I turned 18, and then I started very, very slowly trying to learn how to talk about what had happened to me. I was so traumatized, I could barely function, and now I'm
Yeah.
supposed to try to talk about this stuff. And then it was another year. I was 19 when I anonymously called CPS to report what was happening in the home still, because they still had little kids. And that was really unfortunate because they came back with no findings, which is so much bullshit.
Yeah.
But the way they conducted the interviews, what little they did investigate, they just they saw a fairly decent home with, you know, relatively
Uh-huh.
clean place, and none of the kids
Uh,
were on the ground bleeding at the time, and so they just closed the case.
yeah.
And that pissed me off so bad. Like I completely went into a complete fit of rage and decided to report it to the Michigan State Police. And once I did, holy crap, it was a shitstorm of fury because they believed me, they listened, they investigated, and ultimately arrested him. But now I'm on this journey of being a man of one, trying to deal with the prosecution, with the trial, when his family is utterly silent, not saying a word, denying it.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm out here by myself telling them what happened, and I couldn't disclose a lot of what happened for reasons of I was terrified. Uh,
Yeah.
you couldn't talk
Mm.
about a lot of things because of statute of limitations back then.
Yeah.
I couldn't talk about what I witnessed in the house that happened to other children or his wife because if they weren't willing to testify,
Oh,
trying to explain without explaining what
yeah.
had happened to me. And but ultimately they heard me, believed me, and they convicted him. And so when did I stop looking over and took him away? And I was at that time, by that time I'm 21. Um, and that's when I was able to stop looking over my shoulder.
Okay. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Girl, you have the strength of a warrior. You
Yeah.
are incredible. What did your family, your parents say when people came knocking and asking to talk with them and sharing what you had really poured did they ever back you? Were they feeling horrible? I would. Oh my God. I don't even know what the fuck I would do
Yeah.
if one of my daughters, I have two, went through with that and I didn't know. I
Yeah. Well, I decided um, when I decided to call CPS, I talked to my therapist and said, we have to bring my parents into the loop and so they know what happened. And so they came to one of my appointments where my therapist basically told them what had happened to me. And my dad's initial response was angry, but not at me. He was just angry. And he
yeah,
said, "Why didn't you tell us?" And so, legitimate question. My
yeah,
mom broke down and was crying.
yeah.
They backed, believed, and supported me 1,000%. My mom quit drinking probably by 85% and apologized profusely. And they said, "Whatever you want to do, we are 100% behind you." I knew that they were still being raped and beaten because there were still, at that time, probably three left in the house. And I was watching an Oprah show one day, and I was home from work, and I got all cozied up and was watching it, and damn if it wasn't about sexual abuse. I'm like, oh crap. And I
Yeah.
didn't feel like finding the remote to change it. But the first thing she did was get right in your face in the screen and say, if you know children are being abused and you are not doing anything, you are just as bad as the abuser themselves. And I was like, hell yeah. But then I threw up. I literally became physically ill
Yeah.
because that was me. I'm an adult and I know children are being abused. Now, yeah, I was a victim, but still, at some point, you got to take responsibility as an adult for your actions. And I knew exactly what was happening in that house, and I just was like, shit. So I felt like I had no options other than to report it, and so it just blew up. And my family and my community and my friends supported me 1,000%. And I hear so many stories where that's not the case, and it kills me. It kills me. But I was one of the lucky ones. I got intervention early. I got therapy early. I had everyone supporting me. And if I hadn't had those things, I don't think I would be here. But my mom, to the day she died, felt a tremendous amount of guilt for
Yeah.
what happened and her
Yeah.
role in that.
Yep.
And who
Yep.
wouldn't? I mean,
Yeah.
she was responsible for me,
Yeah.
but chose not to be, but was, and
Yep.
she failed us as a parent, and she knew that.
Yep. Yep.
And she worked her every day till she took her last breath trying to make up for that. And you know, I forgave her, and we had a wonderful relationship for many, many years. And so
Good.
yeah,
Good.
I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones, even though even though what I went through was absolutely horrific and insane and just probably some of the worst abuse you'll ever learn about. But I was one of the lucky ones. I got intervention from the high school early, and my family and community backed me, and it's allowed me to be able to heal.
Ah, love that. So important are first your courage or just reaching that point of I'd rather die than endure another moment. I am
Mm-hmm.
done.
Yes.
Okay. Been there, get that.
Mm-hmm.
Is awful as it is getting there. That point is actually liberating, and the point where you take control over your life. It's like no more. I don't give
Mm-hmm.
a shit. I am done. I am now in control.
Mm-hmm.
Now you are oddly back on the same street you grew up, and you can see that friend's house
Yeah.
from your house. How in the world did that happen?
Call me stupid or the
No,
bravest person on this earth,
yeah,
whichever you
yeah.
want to say.
Brave face. And it does speak 100% to your healing. Like,
Yes.
the situation is no longer controlling you in
Yes.
any way, shape, or form. I
Mhm.
call it a victory and incredibly warrior like warrior like
Warrior like, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it was not, I didn't seek out to live as close to the abuse as I do, but just life circumstances happened and put us right across the street and down the road, separated by a couple fields, where all of this happened to me. And but you're right, I am the most stubborn, tenacious SOB you'll ever meet, and I refuse to be I refuse to be dictated by my past and my history and the abuse as to what I can do now. And that, is something else I would love for survivors to really hear is, you know what, pull up your pants, stand up straight, hold your head up. It wasn't your fault. It's not your shame. Do not put up with being re-victimized over and over for the rest of your life or controlled by triggers, nightmares, flashbacks. I mean, you have to do the work to get through it,
Yeah.
but damn, we suffered enough. It's time to end this crap. Just just do it and show them that they did not take you down. They did not silence us. And we are warriors because if you survived that type of abuse, you're already a warrior. So you might as well stand up and look like a warrior and act like a warrior. And yeah, I moved back right across the street from where this happened. Apologize for the clock. But I live right on the railroad tracks where a horrific incident took place with him. He thought he would show me how desperately I needed to stay silenced because he was going to kill me if I didn't. And he loved to show me ways of how easily it would be to take me out. And one night he dragged me to the railroad tracks because all these trains running through here are timed somewhat regularly. We call it the 4 o'clock train, the 11 o'clock train. We know they're
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
And he took me out to the tracks and held me there while the train was coming. And he's like, they're gonna find parts of you downtown. You wanna fucking talk? Go ahead and fucking talk. Because they're not gonna ever find you. They're only gonna find parts of you downtown. And he held me there for, I don't know exactly how close it was because you can't see at night when that light is so bright. You can't see anything.
Yeah.
And he pulled me off, but I'd already pissed my pants, accepted death, thought I was going to be killed, and I thought he was going to be killed because he was holding me there. And but that's the kind of stuff he did. And so I used to have the most horrific triggering to the train whistle.
Hands. Yeah.
Oh Lord, terrible. I mean, I would avoid any contact I could for many years, and then I'm like, but then I couldn't because if I wanted to be with my parents and at home, they're close enough that you could hear the train too. And so I worked on some of those triggers, which I have 1,000 of them. But I'm like, I'm not gonna let that stuff prevent me from being where I want to be, living how I want to live, and to control me. And so I've ultimately had to get past dealing with the train and the sound and the whistle and the feeling that you can, you feel a mile away that it's coming.
Yeah.
The only time that something affected me was that I was mowing the lawn and I was in the back corner of the yard and I had ear pods on and I had no clue it was coming. And right when it was like 10 feet from me, it started to blow its whistle. And if you can imagine a human being launching off of a tractor
Yeah.
into the yard, scared the shit. I mean, I just
Yeah. What?
like, like
Yeah.
a cat, like a cat
Yeah.
springing.
Yeah.
I was like, and so, but I'm not gonna let my fear of spiders that are from the abuse, or my fear of rope, or my fear of the sound of keys, or I mean, just all I have 1,000 triggers, and I refuse to let them control me. And so I purposely will subject myself to it to desensitize me, so I'm not controlled by that kind of. I don't want to be controlled by anything ever again.
Hang on again. Your courage and determination to disavow everything he did to you, to take back your life and power is incredible. Your spirit is undefeatable. Bravo. Such an inspiration. I have to ask about your friend. Once her dad was sentenced, convicted, sent off. Did she or any of them reach out to you? And if yes, what did they say?
Well, I, for the most part, cut off all ties with everyone during the investigation process by the state police. They
Okay.
did try to interview her. They did ask her to come in, and she said she would, but then she didn't show up. So they brought me in and said, "Would you be willing to talk to her?" And I was like, ah. And I did. And we
Wow.
met at the state police. I assumed that the officer was going to stay in the room, but he didn't. And when he left, a switch flipped, and all of a sudden, before me was her father, because she came at me with venom like I've never seen it out of her.
Oh
She said,
my God.
"I don't know what the fuck you think you're doing. I don't know what the fuck you think you're going to accomplish, but you better shut this down. You better shut your goddamn mouth." And she's like, she just attacked me verbally, and I'm like, I was so taken back by it. It just rendered
Yeah.
me kind of
Oh
speechless.
my God.
And then
Mm-hmm.
she stood up and went to the door, and she turned around and she said, "You better watch your back." And then she left. And when she was going down the hallway, the police officer was taken, the detective was taken back by how quickly this occurred. And he tried to get her to come back. And she's like, "Whatever Morgan said is true," and kept walking. That is the most validation I've ever gotten from any of the family members. And then when he was sentenced and went off to prison about 2 years later, somebody that he was a cellmate with was paroled, in that for non-sexual crimes, but was paroled and came back to the house. So this prisoner was his cellmate, was paroled, went back to his house, broke in, tied up, and raped the youngest last child for 8 hours. And I
Oh,
am here to tell you that that was not an accident, that it was not a coincidence, that was arranged. It was a quid pro quo of some
yeah,
sort,
yeah,
and it was a very, very direct message that I can still get to you, and you better keep your damn mouth shut.
yeah.
And the wife left the state. She picked up the remaining children and left the state and moved because of that. And so I have not had any contact with them. However, I was contacted by a group of women where my friend was living in another state, and they said, we're very, very sorry to reach out to you like this, just completely out of the blue, but we really need your help. I'm thinking, okay. And I saw what state they were from, and it made me a little nervous. I'm like, what's going on here? And basically, they needed to understand and know that if their friend was my friend and it was connected to this trial that they discovered through a private detective digging back into the background of this friend, connected it back to Michigan, connected it back to this trial, connected it to the father, and then to me, and said, is this true? Is this the same person? And I said, yeah, and you're probably in trouble if you're, needing help and reaching out. So basically, what happened was when he was paroled after 20 years of being incarcerated for what he did to me, we did not want him back in this county.
Yeah.
And so the only option they had was to send him down with whatever family members would take him in another state, basically putting him back with his family. And she freaked out so bad that she completely became unhinged and snapped and started flipping out on everybody, kind of and violently. Uh, People had to move, people had to leave the schools, people left their communities because of what she was doing, all based off of him being getting out
Wow.
of getting out of prison and being put down
Yep.
in the state with them. uh, she just went absolutely berserk and started wreaking all this toxic crap onto everybody, to the point where they're like, what happened to our friend?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened? And so they started investigating and found all of it. And so it's just been one thing after another, even though he was found guilty and incarcerated for 20 years. The story just kept going and going and going. And it's so sad to see what happens when we don't heal our trauma, when we don't deal with it, which
Yeah.
is the case with my friend. By the time she left the house at 19, I don't think she knew her ass from her elbow,
Yeah.
because she had disassociated so badly for so
Mm.
long
Yeah.
that it just, she just kept trying to trudge forward. But
Yeah.
at one point, she was in the service and was about ready to be discharged due to mental health issues. And her commanding officer reached out to me to say, would you help me understand what's going on with her? Would you explain to me? Would you be willing to talk to her? And I said, no. No,
Yeah.
I'm not talking to her. Um,
Good.
she needs to,
Good.
yeah, she needs to, whatever needs to happen for her. Yep. And
Bye-bye.
no. Mm-hmm. And
Okay. Oh,
yep.
okay. Two things. What year was her dad paroled? And what year was that your friend's commanding officer reached out?
Well, I kind of little bit backtracked and messed up the timeline, but the commanding officer reached out to me, and that happened quite a bit before he was paroled. So
Okay.
she was struggling in the service so bad that they were trying to
Yeah.
help her and trying to understand.
What?
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
What?
in
Yeah.
that was probably in the like 95.
Wow. Okay.
And
Okay.
then he wasn't paroled until 2012.
Wow.
And then that's when she completely went off the deep end and just snapped and started
Yeah.
wreaking havoc on everyone around her when he was paroled.
Yeah.
And he also put in a visitation request for her to visit her through his parole officer, but then left the form blank on, are there any children in the house? And he put no. He didn't admit to his daughter having children, a daughter at 10 years old, when he was trying to ask for permission to visit with her. He said there's no children in the house, and she had a 10-year-old daughter. And I don't know all the details on that, but I think, you know, with him being paroled, him coming down to her state and then asking for visitation, she completely lost her mind and just tormented everyone around her. And it was, I'm sure, a cry for help, but
Yeah.
she went about it in the the worst possible way because, unfortunately, like I said, people had to move. It was so bad what she was doing. They had to leave. They just had to sell their homes, leave their schools, leave the community to get away from her. And
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So she did embody her father in that way. Manipulation, intimidation, threatening,
Mm-hmm.
bullying. No, sexual um things happening probably, but everything else. Now, you being on the street that it all happened, and him being paroled, you weren't terrified. I would have been terrified. I would have been out of my mind.
Well, when we learned he was going to be paroled, which I was promised, which not promised, but I was told by Victims Advocate that they don't release people like him back into the community and that he most likely is going to be denied parole. And I'm like, thank God. And so when I learned he was going to be paroled, we decided to move back to the community where it happened because I had a lot of support from my friends and family and community. I felt like we would be safer being back into the county that it happened. And so I quit a job, I sold a house, moved back. And then at the last minute, they tried to go back, the Department of Corrections tried to go back on their word of keeping him out of the community. And we're going to put him here. And I'm like, the hell you are.
Yeah,
And we got a bunch of people involved, prosecuting attorneys, the news media, to say this is what they're trying to do because the Department of Corrections doesn't give a crap. They need to get
no.
a body out of the building and
Yep,
save $1. And
yep.
so we fought it, and that's how he ended up being put into another state down with his family. but I wasn't living in the street. I wasn't living on the street that it happened at that point. I was in a different house, but I had ADT come out and put cameras and alarms on anything that would move
Yeah.
because I was absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, because of family situations, I needed to be a little bit closer to my family, and so we moved and ended up on the street where it happened. And by that time, I was I was much less afraid, and he's pretty far away, and so I was less afraid, and I felt okay about it. And like I said, the house did not does not look like it did. So if you picked up his house and put it right next to me, I wouldn't know that's the same house. It's been remodeled and so forth. And so, plus I grew up on all this land and absolutely love it and cherish it, every bit of it. And so I'm most comfortable here and really like it. But it was it was an adjustment. Um, People thought I was crazy to move so close back to where it happened. But to me, it was like, you're not you're not you're not going to tell me or
No.
dictate, and nor is
Yeah.
fear going to dictate where I am or what I do. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. We could go on and on. So I know we have gone way longer than normal.
Hmm.
Thank you for
Hmm.
hanging in. I'm gonna wrap it up, but two more things. Have you heard from him at all? Any fears or anything from the family? And I know you've given throughout our conversation wonderful words of wisdom. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with people who are going through or have gone through what you do have any event are facing now? The assaulter, the victimizer is now out living among us.
Well, I think what I want to most touch on is the violence against women and children have been so pervasive for so long. I think it's up to us women and anyone else that's been abused, boys, men. I think it's time that, and obviously, going to be left up to us to deal with this and to change, because the prevalence on abuse is astronomical. I put it into the epidemic category because when you destroy a child, like I was destroyed, um, it is very difficult to come back from. It's impacting society way more than we realize or are willing to look at. And I feel like it's up to us as survivors to start putting an end to it by speaking up, by telling anyone. And if you don't have people backing you up, your family members, then you go to somebody else until someone listens and believes and helps you. And it's going to be up to survivors to start tipping the scales on this, whether it be changing the laws, the legislation, the statute of limitations. I, right now, based on how the law reads, I have no recourse to deal with what the school and church, their involvement was. I have no recourse to recoup millions of dollars that I have spent recuperating, whether it be from the state of Michigan that's paid it, the insurance companies, or myself, or my parents have paid out to rehabilitate me. I mean, I've had 20 surgeries, and trying to deal with the damage done to me physically. And it's going to be up to us, I think. You know, we've seen movement a little bit here and there with some of these other stories, like Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan State, or that gymnastics scandal with Nasser.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing some of it, but it's not nearly enough. We have got
No.
to say stop, enough,
Done.
done. The violence against women is out of control, and women survivors need to be the ones to stand up and say enough. We're not dealing with this anymore. We're not putting up with it. We're not going to get beat at home, go to the hospital, and go back home and hear, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I will never do this again. Yes, yes, he will. Anyone that crosses that line, even for a fraction of a second, is going to continue to cross that line, whether it's sexually or physically. And it's going to be up to us, unfortunately. But I feel like if we band together as a group of survivors, of men and women,
Yes.
we can make an impact. We just have to want to, and we have to make them change the laws and make them look at this, how pervasive it is and what it does to society. I mean, how many people do you think are incarcerated that weren't abused? 4? I mean, how
Yeah.
many people who have major drug and alcohol problems weren't abused? You know, I mean, that's not the only reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, why are we not looking at how damaging this is to individuals, and it's damaging for the rest of their lives, and it's impacting this world so significantly because we're allowing it to continue. No one's stepping up and saying, you know, we have to end this. We have to change. Why is the rape of a child less important than if I went and murdered my neighbor? I mean, they're not getting the time. They're not getting incarceration. I mean, it's a joke. And it's as damaging. I call it the deathless death. I mean,
Yeah.
it's killing us, and we're not taking it seriously enough. And one podcast, one book at a time, want to change that and force people to look at this topic. As uncomfortable it is, and we don't like to think about it, and I'm going to mind my own business, and I'm going to turn my head, and I'm going to pray that it ends, or I'm going to bury my head in the sand, because that's so hard to listen to. No, it's
No.
enough. It's enough. And so, please, if you have been victimized, please speak up. Please be a voice for change. We all have to. We can do it. I know we can.
To that point, come with Morgan and I. join hands with us as survivors and thrives. We know how difficult it is to step out of the shame and
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment. You are not alone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you is a person who has been abused or in the majority. You
Yeah.
are. I have a Facebook group. I have a book coming out. Morgan has an awesome book, plus another also has ways to reach out to her. There are thousands of groups and books and
Mm-hmm.
people who are waiting to welcome you
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
to healing, loving, understanding, and getting you forward, moving, healthy, and loving life as you should.
Mm-hmm.
Always reach out. You matter. Take a stand, like Morgan said. Do not let your victimizer dictate who you are and how you live. We
Mm-hmm.
need to flip that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't care who supports us, who believes us. Fuck it.
Yeah.
We know
Yes.
anyone who's endured this type of trauma and abuse knows you are telling the truth. Come, come to a community of love and support. Morgan,
Yeah.
girl, I love you. Thank you so much. And girl, enjoy those horses and that beautiful part of the state, your marriage and life. You are deserving of everything good that life offers. You're awesome.
Thank you. But I will add it's 10 degrees, so
Oh,
I don't know about enjoying the state right this second, but
well, put
That's a good
on
grace.
the fire, fire, place, and
Yes, ma'am.
enjoy that I believe is a cuddle alert.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am. You are so right about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Enjoy
Thank
my
you. Yeah.
love
Thank you,
of
Sherry.
you. It
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to explore your own healing journey or intuitive gifts, I'd love to work with you. I offer psychic medium readings, energy healing sessions, and intuitive development guidance at shariroberts.org. And if you're not quite ready for a session, but want to be a part of the conversation in a supportive community, join my private Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. This is Shari Lee Roberts. Until next time, remember, you're never alone.